What we're looking at today, obviously, we're all here for the decoding of your pain and how to take control of the injury itself. What we're going to go through is why the traditional approaches fail and how to find relief yourself, how to properly pinpoint the problem muscle groups and understand how they work. Lastly, strategies to strengthen, mobilize, and overcome the injury. Now, what the plan is we're going to go into a two-part series of this one. So today is going to be about first two. I'm going to go over some stories from other people that I've read about and gotten their quotes from. We're going to go into why the pain occurs, how we can fix the problem. And then the next one, we're going to go into more exercises, how we can mobilize those areas properly and develop a bit more understanding into the actual movements we can do to help ourselves get rid of that pain. So to start off with, I just want to take you through a few testimonials from people that are from multiple comment sections on multiple different videos that I've watched. These are just some of the best ones that I found. So the first one, I've torn my rotator cuff for 20 years. I limited myself exactly as my physical therapist had told me, and he always had pain and issues ongoing. Second one, all of the surrounding muscles were inactive and caused pain. He then decided that he'd go and strengthen his serratus, and it was a godsend. Last one, which is one I think is quite insane. He had severe hip pain. He went and got x-rays, had surgery, nothing helped. The second opinion suggested a hip replacement. In his words, I started doing yoga movements. It blew me away. Now I'm on the journey to eliminate this pain. So instead of getting the hip replacement and going into all these different surgeries, spending all this money, he just tried to do some form of movement that he hadn't done before and tried to release the muscle areas and the groups that were causing him this pain. And he started to see a benefit from that rather than jumping straight into surgery, which is proof that, not to say health professionals don't know what they're doing. They are amazing when you find some good ones, but it's not always the right option and the easiest option just to get a surgery or just to get a hip replacement or a knee replacement or anything like that. Especially as we're getting older in age, the muscles around those joints are going to be just as important as the knee joint health itself, which is what some people start to lose a focus on. So we're going into the first section of today. I'm just going to grab this other whiteboard. I've got a few whiteboards here just to give you guys a bit of visual along with my voice. First things first is the symptom, not the source. So what we want to try and find is what's causing us the pain, the symptom, but it's not always just that needs to be fixed. The source itself can be somewhere completely different and we're getting referral pain from an example. If we've got hip tightness, that can cause us to have a knee pain issue. Or if we've rolled our ankle in the past and haven't properly healed that, that can then refer up into our back. So there's issues throughout the body that can be causing or referring to the problem area that's occurring at the time. So all of us have felt pain or discomfort at some point during our lives. It could be from cramps, joint pain, muscle spasms, and quite often the first thing we do is we go and see our doctor. They're going to then either refer us to get scans here, or they'll prescribe us with some anti-inflammatories, magnesium, glucosamine, just something to help with the pain or something that is going to reduce the inflammation. These are great approaches to take in terms of getting a Band-Aid approach and a quick fix. But as I said before, it's not necessarily going to be the exact cause or the issue at hand that's creating this pain. So just putting a Band-Aid on something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to heal us in the long run. The last thing, as I lift this up, will be referral to a health professional. This is quite often the route we go down, and it's probably the route I'd suggest myself when it comes to finding the issue and trying to find the best way to solve said issue. But it's not always going to be the exact option that works best for us. As I rotate this around, we'll see that I've done a little bit of a diagram here directly relating to each of those points I just made. First one was the prescription. So the doctors come, you've gone to the doctors, he's discussed with you about what the injury or what the pain is. Then we'll get a prescription, whether that is the magnesium or pain meds or anything like that that can help reduce the said pain. That's obviously going to be some of the benefits, reducing pain, reducing inflammation, and then we can train again. However, it's a Band-Aid approach. Doesn't solve the cause, and the pain can return or increase to the point that the pain meds we're on don't help us anymore. Or worst case scenarios, pain increases to the point that we actually pull something or tear something because we're trying to reduce the pain and masking what our body is trying to tell us. Now, if we go down to the scans, they are a great option as well because it's going to give us the exact pain spot. It's going to give us an option to start learning about the injury and the exact injury in itself, not necessarily just the injury area. However, this is also not going to solve the cause. Scans can be quite expensive to get, especially if we don't have insurance. And often they need to be read by a professional, or they'll often send you to see a specialist to get the referral there. Again, another expensive option. So if we don't have the money for those types of things, what are we supposed to do when it comes to that? The last one, as I said before, was the health professional route. Now, this is often the route that I'd suggest for people that do have severe injuries or have injured themselves during sport or in the gym, something that is more pinpoint. Like I had a player that fell over in front of me, grabbing at his ankle, was in severe pain, asked me who kicked him in the back. And I immediately knew that something was wrong because that is the initial symptom of someone who's torn their Achilles, which he ended up have done. So that would be a situation in which 100% go see a health professional, get that checked out properly. You'd want to get scans, the whole 9 yards. But what we're talking about here is pain in the gym. I've got a sore knee, not necessarily wanting to spend a load of money on it, but I want to train. I'm just going to push through it. That's the sort of thing that we're talking about here. So in this case, understanding the issue is something that they're definitely going to have. They're trained professionals. They'll know what they're going to be doing. And as well as a well-trained specialist is going to be able to find a way to fix the issue. However, the downside to this is they don't know how you feel. You can describe it to them, but they're not exactly going to know what's going on in your body. You are the best person for that. We're all human. They could miss something. I've missed things in myself. I'm sure everyone in their own jobs and roles, although they are paid to do the thing, you can miss something. We're human, it happens. But main point is it can be quite expensive. So we step out of the realm of the health professional route and we jump into what we can do about the injury or the area of pain that we're having. I'm going to jump into the knee pain first and specifically follow that for today. And then during our next one, next week, I might dive into a few other areas with a few exercises that can help. So starting off with, we need to know exactly what's going on. If we've got a knee pain or a knee pain issue, this diagram is a great way to help yourself in this regard. The kneecap or our patella is supposed to be a movable bone. So what we can do to test an area of pain is move it in each direction. The way I'd go about this is I'll just have your leg sitting down, leg out in a straight position, and try and be as relaxed as possible. You should be able to push your kneecap in any direction and not really cause any pain. It's supposed to be a freely moving bone. However, if we do get pain or discomfort from moving in a certain direction, that's generally the area that we need to look, especially if we're talking about down usually is the patella tendon itself. That's where we get a lot of discomfort. That's probably the most common one I see. However, we also want to look in the opposite direction. Due to the direct correlation of our leg, it's made to bend in two directions. So all the muscles integrated work together and work in conjunction. So if we have an issue that's causing the pain to be upwards into our quad, we also need to look down at our tib and our calves because they'll have something going on in either of them. When we do jump into exactly what we're looking at, say I lifted it up and to the right, the outside of my right knee, so the lateral side of the knee, and I felt pain down the side here, especially when I'm doing exercise or when I'm doing a squat. This can generally, or I would say the most common way that we'll feel this pain is because the vastus lateralis, the muscle of the quad that is on the outside, and the IT band just here, which is this blue marking here, that rolls over the top of that muscle, probably way too tight. And what they'd be doing is lifting or pulling that kneecap up and out of position, as we can see by this diagram here. So that's a really easy one that we can see ourselves, play around with, feel our knee, understand the pain that we're feeling. However, it's not always this simple. If we were to go into the patella tendon, as I said before, the one that runs directly down the middle, the medial patella ligament, this is going to be a lot more difficult to understand what the issue is. Hence why I'd either say go see a health professional or get the scans done. Reason being is it can be related to the tight VMO here, the muscle here, or our calf can't load the weight that we're picking up properly. It can go up all the way into the hip. Say we got a hip impingement that we didn't know about, or we got hip tightness. I'll show you some exercises next week on how we can associate and judge between a healthy and a pain point of our hip. So from there, it could also lead to mobility issues in our ankle or our calf. So obviously the knee is a very hard area to justify exactly the injury or the pain point, but there's many, many ways that we can discern between the injury itself and where it's coming from. Now, when we're talking about the success of what we're going to do, if we're feeling pain or it occurs during load increasing, so say I started my squat, I'm doing 60 kilos, I feel okay, and then go up to 70 and start to feel a little bit sore, then it gets to 80 and I'm like, no, I don't want to continue. That actually is a good thing. It doesn't mean that the pain or whatever's happening in our knee can't be fixed by ourselves. That also happens if we're doing our exercise and we can do a squat. We can't do a squat, as I just said. We're feeling that pain, but I go into leg extensions where I'm bringing my knee up and extending out through my toe, and it feels fine. That's also a good thing. That means that there's not structural integrity that has been damaged in our knee. If we start to feel that pain and it develops a little bit more throughout the workout, so I'm feeling good, there's no specific exercise that creates the pain, but as I'm going, it starts to get a little bit sore, that's also a good thing. All of these markers mean that we actually have the ability and a greater chance to fix it ourselves. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions so far? Sweet. All right. So as we're going forward, I want to bring this one back up again. In this diagram here, we can see that each muscle group directly correlated above and below will have an effect on our quad or our tib or our calf. The pain that we feel if it's on this lateral side, directly on the vastus lateralis, generally will be the pulling up of the kneecap. So a way to fix that or a way to help aid that pain specifically would be foam rolling, a good way to get a little bit of reduced inflammation or getting the muscle to release a little bit more. Icing, another great way, jumping in the ice tub that we have here, another great way to reduce the inflammation and allow us to do our movements a lot easier, a lot more fluid. Or another option is getting some band work and strengthening the muscle itself, which is taking me into our next point of hip impingements. So a lot of the time in hip impingements, people will often feel like they need to stretch a lot or avoid movement in that area altogether. They're probably two of the worst things that we could do. Overstretching the hip impingement is just going to create a lot of weakness in the muscle, which already is a weak muscle to begin with. It's a smaller group of muscles that are controlling the lifting of your leg. So what we want to do is strengthen those instead of adding extra length to that muscle. Best way to do that is to work on our mobility and our hip flexor itself. Multiple different exercises that I'll take you guys through on the next week's one. But that is a really, really important muscle that generally will affect knee and ankle pain as well. For an example is if I'm doing a deep squat and I'm getting caught at a midpoint here and I can't get any lower, if it's our hip, generally speaking, you'll start to feel your lower back get a bit sore as we go down because I'll hinge forwards rather than being able to get the full depth of the movement. That also refers down to the ankle. If we've got ankle tightness or our ankle isn't able to move in the correct way, we should be able to really get our knee to wall with a 5-inch gap between our foot and the wall itself. Again, I'll take you guys through that in next week's exercises. This direct cause here will, again, put it into your lower back in a squat especially, because we won't be able to get that right depth and get down far enough to be able to discern between a proper squat or a hip movement. That hip movement obviously is going to cause the pain in the hip due to our ankle. Does that make sense? So ankle issue goes straight into the hip, that can go straight into the knee. These referral injuries are things that we can work on ourselves. We just need to know the exercises to understand why we're feeling the pain, and then the exercises to then benefit and fix that pain. Again, I'll take you through all those in next week's one. No questions so far? Sweet. All right. Last thing that I want to go over before we finish this quick one is when we go through a patellofemoral pain syndrome, which is just a scientific term or a very broad term for pain that is around our knee and patella and kneecap. That's again another symptom where our doctor or our health professional will be talking to us about that specific thing and not able to discern between whether it's our ankle or it's our hip or if it's our core, not being able to stabilize ourselves properly. So what we want to do and what we need to be able to do is train through that in a light manner and not go to excess or to push ourselves to the point that we're feeling a lot more pain in that area. The best way to go about that is finding simple exercises, whether that be core stability work, knee stability work, just doing some sit-ups, core work, something really simple, and building your way up. I'd find myself, if I'm feeling hip impingement pain, which I have in previous times, many before, and knee pain as well, I want to take things really, really slowly. I wouldn't suggest going into a deep squat for someone that is feeling any sort of pain, but I would suggest using something to help get yourself to that exercise eventually. Stepping stones are the best way to discern between an injury and something that's just a slight pain and we need to work through that. Stepping stone for a squat, for example, would be a Spanish squat. Just nearly forgot the name of it. Spanish squat is when we wrap a band around both of our knees and we slowly go down to about 75 to 25 degrees. We don't want to go through the full range of motion, and we'll just pause there and hold for around 30 to 60 seconds. This is a way to put our knee under load, our hip under load, without getting super far in the movement and without adding a lot of weight. So our body weight is enough to get our load-bearing muscles to start helping the knee itself or the hip itself to take that weight and get stronger without adding a lot of weight onto our back. Another thing that I want to go into next week with more detail is shoulder pain and shoulder impingement. A lot of the times when we have issues with our shoulders, we might be feeling tight when we're holding a back squat. We might be feeling a little bit of pain in the back of our shoulder or the front of our shoulder when we're doing a bench press, anything like that. Is again another area that we can fix ourselves. We don't necessarily need to jump into the health professional route or the medical route or taking multiple different supplements to try and help that pain ease. What I'd suggest, again, taking things slowly, finding that range of motion that works for you and slowly building it out, finding some stretches that help release the pain and the sore muscles that we're feeling, or going down the route of doing the actual exercise to a lesser degree, as with the Spanish squat. So if I'm feeling quite a lot of pain in my bench press, a great way to support that is to work on the support muscles in the back here, called our rotator cuff, with just some external rotation, like so. What this is going to do is strengthen the muscle groups around our shoulder and not necessarily make them rely on our main muscle movers, but also the little stabilizers that work around the muscles as well. They are probably, if not the most important, but probably one of the most important muscle groups when it comes to a bench press, for example. When we're doing our bench press, I injured myself in the rotator cuff, actually doing this exact movement. I was benching and my elbow lifted up and my rotator cuff wasn't able or wasn't strong enough to handle the load that I put on it. This is, again, me being a little bit younger, a lot younger than what I am now, and I didn't have the understanding of the stabilizers and the muscle groups. So when I injured myself, I thought, shit, I can't do it anymore, so I'm just not going to. My shoulders then grew weaker and the pain got worse. Hence why I'm suggesting a slow increase of our load and a slow increase of our mobilization and movement within the muscle groups. For me, being able to fix my shoulder came from a lot of pushing with band work and external rotation, getting the muscle groups, my rotator cuff, to get a lot stronger to be able to handle the load. As I've talked with Sam many times before, when we were working on my bench press, he told me this, that's stuck with me, and I'm now telling all of my clients, our rotator cuff or external rotation should be able to handle around 10% of what we can bench press. So for me, if I can bench press 125 kilos for one rep, I should be able to do 12.5 kilo external rotation up or out. That is quite a lot of load to be able to put onto the rotator cuff. And I can tell you now, probably can't do it. So even for me, someone who is a PT who's training all day, every day, trying to get as big as I can in the gym, trying to get as strong as I can in the gym. I still have a lot to work on when it comes to my rotator cuff, an injury that I've had in the past. So our general population probably don't do enough of this sort of exercises. And that leads to these sorts of injuries. It leads to knee pain. It leads to ankle pain. And the way to fix that is the slow burn, trying to get a little bit stronger in the muscle groups like our rotator cuff, like in through our VMO, with smaller exercises, relying on bands, relying on body weight, not loading up on the exercise and just trying to beat the pain itself. Or again, going down the prescription route or taking supplements or just trying to get some sort of pain relief in there, then doing the exercise anyway. That's just going to lead us down the route of more money, going into all these different specialists, trying to get all this money out. Things like these guys up here that spent loads of money, a guy that nearly ended up getting an entire hip replacement, but instead decided to do yoga. So there is very, very specific ways that we can fix something where it goes down that sort of route, but they don't always work. So I implore all of my clients and all of you guys watching today to jump into some knowledge, some learning exercises, watch some YouTube videos on small movements. Watch my video next week and I'll take you through some of the movements myself. Do some band work, do some stabilizing work, use your rotator cuffs, use your hip flexors, use your VMO, all the smaller muscle groups that need to be worked on a lot more than just our chest or just our quads. Because if we're strengthening them, we're just doing a detriment to ourselves. The chest itself, I'll leave us with this little bit of a tidbit. The chest itself is made to medially rotate our shoulders, right? So if I'm thinking about it and I've got great chest press, I can bench press a lot, my chest is really strong, but my back isn't, my shoulders aren't, all I'm doing is internally rotating myself, creating that overgrown shoulder here, that rotation. And we want to be able to open up the chest as a main standpoint. Is what one of the things we focus on here, especially when we've got people coming in, clients that are at their desk all day. That shoulder rotation is always something that is an issue. I don't think I've had a client come in that I've worked with that hasn't had some form of shoulder rotation forwards. So that is one thing that I see a lot outside of the gym from Instagram users, videos, all the people that are trying to get as big as they can in the gym. You don't really see people pushing the smaller exercises. So definitely work on that stuff. I'll see you guys next week and we'll go over all the different types of exercises that we can do. Before I leave us here, are there any questions that you guys want to jump in and ask?
Not a question, but just a comment.
Yeah, sure.
I'm amazed at how quickly we go down the surgical route as well. That guy, the hip, because I had a bulging disc earlier this year, and with it, like in less than a week after it happened, my GP, who's a very good doctor, but my GP and the radiologist who gave me a cortisone injection, they were both talking about surgery with it, like in less than a week. And I was pretty distressed at that thought. And if it wasn't for training there with Sam, who was like, no, we're not even close to thinking about surgery. And Sam and the osteo I was seeing had me work through the surgery. And Friday night at the community games, I did a PB on the trap bar, thinking, and if I hadn't been training there, I would have followed the advice of the GP and the radiologist, and I probably would have gone and had surgery, but turns out didn't need it at all.
Yeah, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's like an issue because there's a load of great radiologists, there's a load of great doctors, there's a load of great specialists out there that probably wouldn't jump to it that quickly. But unfortunately, in today's day and age, the quick fix or the fastest approach tends to be the one that people want to go down. I'm sure a lot of people that end up listening to this podcast, they'd probably choose a quick route if they could. Not necessarily saying surgery, but if there was a Band-Aid approach that I gave you, a medical miracle that was like, okay, cool, I can fix you in a week. You'd want to hear about it. You'd want to do it. It's just today's day and age. We don't have the time to be spending months to try and fix something, which is, again, why Sam and yourself worked on those sorts of exercises, because we want to get us to the point that our body can handle anything we're trying to do for as long as possible, our longevity of life, our longevity in the gym, our longevity of like even just picking up your kids. Like imagine if you did get that surgery on your back and you couldn't go to the gym anymore. Like there's so many different things that a quick fix approach can change or can strip from your life. So your body's an incredible thing that can fix itself in so many different ways. So yeah, it's another great story yourself, and a success story, just like the ones up here, of finding ways not to go down the quick fix, not to just jump into a surgery, not to listen to a health professional just because they're a health professional, and follow the route that works best for you. Which, again, I implore all of you guys, try out some of these exercises that I'll show you next week, some of the ones I talked about today, just to develop the muscle groups, the tendons, the ligaments, more than just the bigger exercises or the bigger muscles themselves. It's not going to get us any further in the long run if our mobility is crap and our smaller muscle groups aren't able to handle the load that the bigger muscle groups are able to handle. So love that story from you, Jeffrey. Any other questions or statements? Sweet. That is me done. I'll see you guys next week, and we'll go over some of the exercises that we'll be doing and how we can improve injuries or find out what injuries we have and work on them from there. Thanks for listening, guys.